Country music prides itself on loyalty and tradition, but behind the scenes, Nashville can be ruthless. Artists who didn't play by the rules, whether through controversy, rebellion, or personal demons, often found themselves quietly pushed out. Here are 21 country music stars who were secretly banned from Nashville. Number 21. David Allan Coe. David Allan Coe built a cult following with his outlaw image and gritty lyrics. Songs like "You Never Even Called Me by My Name" and "The Ride" made him a favorite for fans who felt country was getting too polished. He was raw, real, and fearless on stage, often performing for packed bars filled with bikers and hardcore country fans. Still, his fearlessness often came with a price. Coe released a pair of underground albums in the 1980s that featured highly controversial, racist, and sexually explicit content. Though he claimed they were satire, the backlash was swift and brutal. Nashville insiders distanced themselves completely, with some venues refusing to book him and industry elites cutting him out of the mainstream. He also made enemies in the business, with artists like Jimmy Buffett accusing him of plagiarism, fueling Coe's reputation as unpredictable and unprofessional. While Coe kept performing for loyal fans, Nashville kept him at arm's length. His outlaw image may have thrilled some, but in Music City, it marked him as too risky to touch. And if Coe was too wild for the Opry, the next artist was too honest for the charts. Kacey Musgraves won hearts with her debut. Same trailer, different park, blending sharp songwriting with progressive themes. Follow Your Arrow became an anthem for individuality, and critics hailed her as the new voice of modern country. She won multiple Grammys and a place in fans' hearts for saying what others wouldn't. But even as the awards piled up, something was missing: support from country radio and the Nashville machine. Her lyrics celebrated same-sex relationships, marijuana use, and challenged small-town conservatism, topics the country industry often avoids. Though she was praised by fans and critics, country stations gave her minimal airtime, and her songs often struggled to chart on traditional country platforms. Industry insiders whispered that she had gone too far left, and her CMA presence dwindled with each passing year. Musgraves even remarked publicly about feeling like an outsider in her own genre. Musgraves didn't crash and burn. She soared into pop stardom instead. But her absence from country's biggest stages wasn't by chance. And unlike Kacey's quiet exile, the next name on our list faced rejection loud and clear. Johnny Paycheck rode to fame with working-class anthems like "Take This Job and Shove It," becoming a symbol of rebellion in country music. Fans loved his rough voice and raw attitude, and he was seen as one of the original outlaws alongside legends like Merle Haggard and Waylon Jennings. But that rebel spirit turned dangerous. Paycheck was constantly in trouble, battling drug addiction, alcohol abuse, and a long history of barroom brawls. His downfall peaked in 1985 when he shot a man in a Hillsboro, Ohio bar after an argument. Though the victim survived, Paycheck was convicted of aggravated assault and sentenced to prison. The scandal was too much for Nashville to ignore. His label dropped him. Radio stations stopped playing his songs, and venues quietly blacklisted him from future bookings. Industry support vanished overnight, leaving Paycheck to serve his time in near-total exile from the country world. Paycheck's outlaw persona eventually overshadowed his music, leaving him a cautionary tale. His ban wasn't official, but it was total, and if his temper got him locked out, the next star was barred for reasons even darker. Linda Ronstadt earned legendary status with her powerhouse vocals and genre-defying career. Though she was best known for her rock and pop hits in the 70s, her venture into country was undeniable. Her collaborations with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris, and albums like Heart Like a Wheel, helped bridge the gap between California rock and Nashville tradition. Fans embraced her, and critics hailed her as a rare vocal chameleon. But Nashville never fully welcomed her. Industry insiders saw her as an outsider meddling in their genre. It wasn't just her California roots, it was her politics too. Ronstadt was outspoken, especially about George W. Bush during the Iraq War, and that didn't sit well with conservative country circles. She was even escorted out of a Las Vegas venue mid-tour after praising filmmaker Michael Moore on stage. Though not a country artist in the traditional sense, her country efforts were shunned, and she quietly vanished from the scene. She later admitted she never felt accepted by the country music establishment. Ronstadt's voice could cross any genre line, but Nashville drew one in the sand. And where she was pushed out for speaking up, the next artist was kicked out for acting out, spectacularly. Billy Joe Shaver was a songwriter's songwriter. He penned classics like honky-tonk heroes for Waylon Jennings, and helped define the outlaw country movement. His raspy voice, honest lyrics, and tough Texas swagger earned him respect from legends and a cult following from die-hard fans who saw him as the real deal. But real trouble followed him. Shaver's outlaw ways were more than just branding. They were a way of life. In 2007, he shot a man in the face outside a bar in Loretta, Texas. He claimed self-defense and was later acquitted, but the damage was done. Nashville promoters backed away, fearful of the headlines. He had already been a fringe figure, often bypassed for awards and mainstream exposure. After the trial, his appearances became rarer, and Nashville doors quietly shut tighter. Shaver didn't help matters by continuing to speak his mind, often blasting the industry for going soft. Though the Texas scene embraced him until the end, Shaver remained persona non grata in Nashville. And if his gun got him banned, the next artist proved that even being a legend doesn't make you immune from exile. Hank Williams Jr. was born into country royalty, but carved out his own path with a southern rock edge. Hits like Family Tradition and All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight made him a household name, and fans loved his wild man persona. He became a staple of 80s country and the face of Monday Night Football with his raucous theme song. But Bocephus's mouth cost him dearly. In 2011, during a televised interview, he compared President Obama to Hitler, a comment that sparked national outrage. ESPN dropped him, and country radio distanced itself overnight. Though he issued a statement calling the remarks misunderstood, the damage was done. Behind the scenes, Nashville power players cooled their support. Invitations to award shows stopped coming, and despite his legacy, he was largely written out of the new country narrative. Younger artists kept their distance. Williams Jr. returned with new music and continued to tour, but his ties to Nashville were never quite the same. He may have inherited the name, but his behavior kept him on the outside looking in. And if he burned bridges with one statement, the next star scorched an entire city with her pen. As lead singer of the Chicks, Natalie Maines helped redefine country music in the late 90s and early 2000s. Hits like Wide Open Spaces and Goodbye Earl turned them into superstars, blending bluegrass roots with pop accessibility. They dominated award shows, sold out stadiums, and became symbols of female empowerment in a male-dominated genre. Everything changed in 2003. During a London concert, Maines told the crowd they were ashamed President Bush was from Texas. The backlash back home was swift and brutal. Country radio blacklisted their music. Fans organized CD burnings, and the group received death threats. The industry turned its back on them almost overnight. Nashville gatekeepers labeled them traitors, and invitations to events like the CMAs disappeared entirely. Though they released a Grammy-winning album 3 years later, they were effectively blackballed from the country mainstream. Maines and the band reinvented themselves with a new name and sound, but the Nashville ban has never fully lifted. And while her words sparked a firestorm, the next artist stirred quiet outrage with a single gesture. Waylon Jennings was a cornerstone of the outlaw country movement. With hits like Lookenbach, Texas, and Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, he gave fans gritty, real-life country, far from Nashville's polished style. His influence was so great, he helped open doors for artists like Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash to reclaim creative control. However, Waylon's battle with Nashville wasn't just musical, it was personal. He openly criticized the industry's strict control over artists, and when he refused to conform to the Nashville sound, he was effectively ostracized. He turned down the Grand Ole Opry, rejected Music Row's authority, and built his career outside their reach. His 1977 cocaine arrest didn't help his standing either. Despite commercial success, he was shut out of many industry events, awards, and platforms for years. Even his Hall of Fame induction came later than many felt it should. Jennings may have thrived without Nashville, but his absence from its institutions was deliberate on both sides. And where Waylon walked away on his own terms, the next name didn't have a choice at all. Morgan Wallen's rise was meteoric. With his southern drawl, bro-country charm, and massive streaming hits like Whiskey Glasses and 7 Summers, he quickly became one of country's biggest stars. His blend of traditional twang and modern swagger earned him legions of loyal fans and sold-out arena tours. That came crashing down in early 2021. A video surfaced of Wallen using a racial slur outside his Nashville home. The reaction was immediate. Radio stations dropped him, streaming services removed his songs from playlists, and his record label suspended his contract. The Country Music Association and the ACM Awards Both disqualified him from nominations. While fans rallied in protest and his album sales paradoxically soared, the Nashville elite pulled the plug behind the scenes. Industry insiders described it as an unofficial ban. No formal statement, just silence. Though he's since made a slow comeback, including limited radio support, his full return to Nashville's inner circle remains out of reach. And if Wallen was silenced for one word, the next artist faced years of whispers before the doors closed completely. Tanya Tucker burst onto the scene as a teenage sensation with Delta Dawn, stunning audiences with her mature voice and rebellious attitude. She became a fixture in country music through the 70s and 80s with hits like Texas, When I Die, and Two Sparrows in a Hurricane. Her bold style and fearless lyrics made her both a trailblazer and a fan favorite. Still, her private life began to eclipse her talent. Tanya's relationships with high-profile men, especially her tumultuous romance with Glenn Campbell, became tabloid fodder. Stories of hard partying, drug use, and public fights followed her everywhere. The Nashville establishment, already uncomfortable with her defiant image, began to distance themselves. As the industry leaned toward clean-cut stars in the 90s, Tucker found herself pushed out of the spotlight. Behind closed doors, she was considered too volatile for awards, major bookings, or media campaigns. Though Tucker eventually made a triumphant comeback decades later, her exile from Nashville wasn't short-lived. And while Tanya was cast aside for chaos, the next artist got pushed out for standing firm. Sturgill Simpson challenged everything Nashville stood for. With albums like Meta-Modern Sounds in country music and A Sailor's Guide to Earth, he won over critics and indie fans alike. His sound was fresh, psychedelic, and defiantly original. He even took home a Grammy, cementing his place as one of the most innovative voices in modern country. Yet his relationship with Nashville was tense from the start. Simpson refused to play the game. He bypassed Music Row, slammed the industry for its hypocrisy, and often mocked the country awards circuit. When he busked outside the 2017 CMA Awards in protest of their failure to mention the Las Vegas shooting, it was the final straw. Industry insiders labeled him a troublemaker, and major country institutions stopped inviting him. Despite his talent and critical acclaim, his music received almost no support from country radio or Nashville media. Simpson didn't care. He walked his own path. But the silence from Nashville made it clear. His voice wasn't welcome in the mainstream. And if Simpson was too bold for the suits, the next legend found herself erased just for aging. Dolly Parton is one of country music's most beloved icons, with timeless hits like Jolene, 9 to 5, and Coat of Many Colors. She built an empire of charm, talent, and business savvy. Her voice and spirit defined generations of country fans, and few artists have earned as much adoration across the globe. Yet behind the rhinestones and warm smiles lies a colder truth. As Dolly aged, the Nashville establishment began sidelining her. Awards grew fewer, radio play dwindled, and new artists were prioritized over her contributions. Despite staying active, releasing albums, and earning accolades in pop and gospel, she was often left out of major country events. Whispers circulated that she was too big, too old, or too crossover for modern country. Even her surprise Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction drew more media coverage than any recent country accolade. Dolly never needed their approval to thrive, but the quiet freeze-out stung. And if even the Queen of Country could be quietly pushed aside, imagine what fate awaited the next outcast. One who once stood center stage at the Opry. Stonewall Jackson was a Grand Ole Opry mainstay for over 4 decades, known for hits like Waterloo and Don't Be Angry. He helped define the traditional country sound of the 50s and 60s. Fans admired his pure vocals and straight-shooting songs, and his tenure at the Opry made him seem like a permanent fixture in Nashville's heart. But Jackson's loyalty to tradition led him into conflict. In 2006, he filed a lawsuit against the Opry, claiming age discrimination. He alleged that management was sidelining older artists in favor of younger, more commercially viable acts. The lawsuit caused a major stir within the country community. Though he later settled out of court, Jackson was quietly removed from regular rotation and rarely seen at the Opry again. Many believe the suit made him persona non grata in the very circle he helped build. Jackson's final years were spent largely outside of Nashville's spotlight. His exile served as a warning. Speak out against the institution, and you just might vanish from it. And if age led to Jackson's disappearance, The next artist disappeared for reasons far more scandalous. LeAnn Rimes skyrocketed to fame at just 13 with her debut hit, Blue, drawing comparisons to Patsy Cline and winning a Grammy by age 14. Her powerful voice and crossover appeal made her one of country's brightest young stars, with hits like How Do I Live and Can't Fight the Moonlight, dominating both country and pop charts. But her image unraveled quickly in the public eye. After a messy divorce and a high-profile affair with actor Eddie Cibrian, Rimes was painted as a homewrecker by fans and tabloids alike. The backlash was fierce. Concert attendance dropped, country radio pulled back, and Nashville insiders distanced themselves from the controversy. Though she continued releasing music, she was no longer invited to the CMAs or embraced by the industry like before. Her attempts at a comeback were often ignored by the very genre that once embraced her. Rimes remained vocally unapologetic, but her exile lingered for years. And where she lost favor over personal choices, the next artist clashed with Nashville simply by refusing to smile. Jamey Johnson broke through with his 2008 album That Lonesome Song, earning critical acclaim and hits like In Color that felt like instant classics. His rough-hewn voice and hard-luck lyrics won over traditionalists, and his outlaw image was praised as authentic in an era of slick production. Yet Johnson never seemed to play along with the industry's rules. He rarely did interviews, refused to chase radio hits, and often criticized the direction of modern country. After suffering a head injury in 2010 that reportedly affected his memory, his album output slowed. But even before that, he was already being shut out. Award shows stopped nominating him, labels stopped pushing his work, and rumors swirled that he had been difficult behind the scenes. His refusal to kiss the ring made him a quiet pariah among Nashville power players. Though his fan base remains loyal, Johnson's absence from country's biggest stages isn't accidental. And if stubbornness closed doors for him, the next star found those same doors slammed for reasons he couldn't control. Charley Pride broke barriers in country music as the genre's first black superstar. With classics like Kissin' Angel Good Mornin' and Is Anybody Goin' to San Antone, he racked up over 30 #1 hits and became a household name in the 70s and 80s. Fans loved his smooth vocals and humble presence, and he became a symbol of hope for underrepresented artists. But his relationship with Nashville was always more complicated than it seemed. Pride faced discrimination throughout his career. Early on, promoters didn't want to put his face on album covers. Even after becoming a legend, he was rarely given the same recognition as his white peers. In later years, as conversations about diversity grew louder, Pride quietly acknowledged how the industry had excluded him from key honors and radio rotations. His death in 2020 sparked praise, but also guilt, with many admitting Nashville never gave him the respect he truly deserved while he was alive. Pride's silence spoke volumes, and while his exile was rooted in prejudice, the next artist's fall came from scandal of his own making. Randy Travis revitalized country music in the 80s with his deep voice and traditional style. Songs like Forever and Ever, Amen, and On the Other Hand made him a superstar. He won multiple Grammys and helped pave the way for the neo-traditional country movement, inspiring an entire generation of artists. But his personal struggles hit hard in the 2000s. Travis faced multiple arrests, including a highly publicized 2012 incident where he was found naked and intoxicated on a Texas highway. Police dashcam footage went viral, damaging his wholesome image. Nashville, once proud of its golden boy, responded by distancing itself. Radio play disappeared. Award show invitations stopped. And after suffering a debilitating stroke in 2013, he was rarely seen in public for years. Though fans rallied behind him, the industry had quietly moved on. Randy's voice once symbolized everything right with country. But when things went wrong, Nashville walked away. And if Travis was cast out during a crisis, the next artist was blackballed for never fitting in at all. Though more known as a poet and children's author, Shel Silverstein left a huge mark on country music. He wrote hits like A Boy Named Sue for Johnny Cash and the cover of the Rolling Stone for Dr. Hook. His quirky, brilliant songwriting made him a favorite among rebels and legends alike. He was a genius behind the curtain. However, Shel was never truly welcomed by Nashville's old guard. His lyrics were too strange, his background too bohemian, and his personality too unpredictable for the traditionalist gatekeepers. He wasn't part of the club, and he didn't want to be. Nashville respected his talent but kept him at arm's length. He lived outside the spotlight and rarely attended awards or industry events, often left off lists despite his incredible contributions. Behind closed doors, he was seen more as a novelty than a fixture. Silverstein never needed their validation, but his near absence from Nashville's narrative remains one of its quietest shames. And if Shel was left out for being different, our final name was erased for being too much like the rest. Billy Ray Cyrus became a global sensation with Achy Breaky Heart in 1992. His mullet, dance moves, and catchy chorus turned him into a pop culture icon. The song was a smash, and fans rushed to his shows. For a moment, he was the face of modern country's crossover potential. Then came the backlash. Critics panned him as a gimmick, and traditionalists accused him of cheapening the genre. Nashville's elite quietly turned their backs, dismissing him as flash in the pan. As his fame faded, Cyrus was increasingly shut out of the serious country music scene. Despite later success with roles like Doc and his fatherly guidance during daughter Miley's rise, Billy Ray found himself mostly ignored by country award shows and radio. Even his comeback with Old Town Road was celebrated more in hip-hop circles than Nashville's. Billy Ray never fully regained his place in the country canon, and his story is a reminder. Sometimes, success is what gets you banned. Jerry Lee Lewis exploded onto the country scene in the late 1960s after his rock and roll career hit turbulence, with hits like What's Made Milwaukee Famous, Has Made a Loser Out of Me, and Middle-Aged Crazy. He rebranded himself as a honky-tonk wild man. Fans appreciated his raw energy and piano-pounding fire, which brought a dangerous edge to traditional country. Yet Nashville never fully forgave his past. Lewis had already been scandalized in the late 50s for marrying his 13-year-old cousin, a move that destroyed his rock career. When he turned to country, the industry accepted the record sales but never embraced the man. He was labeled too unpredictable, too unpolished, and too much of a liability. Despite several hits and Opry performances, he was mostly kept out of major award conversations and shunned from industry circles. Rumors of drunken outbursts and backstage chaos only sealed his fate. Jerry Lee Lewis may have found success in country, but he never found a home. Nashville took his talent, but never gave him a seat at the table. And while he banged on the doors, the final artist on this list was quietly locked out without ever being told why. Loretta Lynn was the voice of working-class women, singing boldly about real life in songs like Coal Miner's Daughter, The Pill, and Don't Come Home A-Drinkin' with Lovin' on Your Mind. She earned countless awards, topped the charts, and became the first woman to win the CMA Entertainer of the Year. Fans saw her as fearless and authentic, a true country queen. Even so, Nashville's relationship with Loretta wasn't always one of respect. Her songs were frequently banned from radio stations for being too controversial. Industry leaders bristled at her outspokenness on women's issues, and her later years saw fewer invitations to high-profile events, fewer nominations, and less airplay. Behind closed doors, some viewed her as difficult for refusing to stay quiet or conform. While she was celebrated in death, many noted how little she was featured by the CMA or ACM during the final decades of her life. Loretta Lynn wasn't banned in name, but in action. Her legacy loomed too large to erase, yet Nashville often tried. And if even country's most iconic woman could be cast aside in silence, it leaves one final question. Who else is Nashville keeping out, and why? Let us know in the comments who you think deserved better, or who was right to be pushed away. Because behind every country hit, there's a story Nashville doesn't want you to hear.